Jamie, thank you. So we have planes hitting the Pentagon, or plane hitting the Pentagon, 2 planes hitting the World Trade Center's towers in New York. Alan Dodds-Frank joins us on the phone in Lower Manhattan. Alan?
Aaron, just 2 or 3 minutes ago, there was yet another collapse or explosion. I'm now out of sight. A Good Samaritan has taken me in on Duane Street. But at 11:15, there was another collapse or explosion following the 10:30 collapse of the second tower. And a firefighter who rushed by us estimated that 50 stories went down. The street filled with smoke. It was like a forest fire roaring down a canyon. Now, as I think Patty Sabga and others have told you, all of Manhattan is covered, downtown Manhattan is covered with thick white ash and building material. The ambulances have been coming now from as far as Long Island. All the rescue workers are being equipped with gas or face filter masks, and firefighters have been arriving even by pickup truck. Otherwise, the streets are now deserted.
Alan, thank you. Alan Dodds-Frank in Manhattan. A little more on this plane crash, which is the 4th incident, if you will. There was the plane crash at the Pentagon, crashing into the Pentagon. There were the 2 planes that hit the World Trade Center here in New York. And we don't know whether this 4th one is related or not, but the report is that a 747 en route from Chicago to New York City crashed in Somerset County, Pennsylvania, about 80 miles to the southeast of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's the incident. That's what we are hearing.
And I'm standing next to a fireman. He said, yeah, they just bombed the Pentagon, too.
Our colleague, Jeff Green, well, we have a little more sound here from witnesses.
I'm with the fire alarm company. The doorman goes to me, wow, I never seen a plane flying so low. And we looked out at it, all of a sudden, boom, it seemed like it wasn't even real. And we came running over here closer to the place, and all of a sudden we saw the other explosion. I don't know. Get down! Get down! What's happening? She's not waiting for you!
I was in B Tower. A Tower.
What floor were you on?
B1.
What floor?
First one.
What happened? Tell me.
When a big explosion happened, some guy came out, his skin was all off. I helped him out. This is him all over. There's people jumping out of windows. I've seen at least 14 people jumping out of windows. It's horrific. I can't believe this is happening.
Anything else that you saw? Were you there for the second hit by the plane?
About 10 minutes later, the second building went off.
Did you see it?
Yes, I saw it. It just blew up. A big explosion. People started running. It was just chaos everywhere. Yes, I was right there. I was down in the basement. Came down. All of a sudden, the elevator blew up. Smoke. I dragged the guy out. His skin was hanging off, and I dragged him out, and I helped him out of to the ambulance.
Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Carrie LaPoo. We're here reporting attacks on America that have started about 8:45 this morning and are continuing on. Just to update you on what is happening, the Twin Towers of New York's World Trade Center have collapsed after 2 aircraft crashed into them earlier this morning. An apparent coordinated terrorist attack similar to aircraft crashes have been reported at the Pentagon and at the Capitol building. The UN has been evacuated, as well as the White House and the Capitol. There were reports of a car bombing at the State Department, but that has been confirmed that is not true. Government sources are saying that the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine are claiming responsibility for the attacks. We also have some information that comes closer to home in the Somerset County area, which is from Pittsburgh, about 80 miles southeast. There has been an airplane that has crashed there. There's no word yet whether this crash is related to the New York bombings or the Pentagon bombings, and we have no information on fatalities or injuries at that point. In New York, hospitals are being filled with patients, people coming in. They're trying to estimate who needs the most help. No injuries have not, excuse me, there have not been a number of injuries that have been reported to us yet. Okay, what we're going to show you right now is the World Trade Tower, so just watch as this is coming up on the screen. What you're going to be seeing is different explosions earlier from this morning, like last. And the explosion, the smoke and stuff has been flying everywhere. People are being asked to evacuate the area. And as you can see soon, we will try and get that video up for you so you can see as much information. I'm sure you've been tuning into the other broadcasts from this morning, but we will keep you updated with as much information as we possibly can. There you can see the World Trade Center there this morning before it collapsed.
Senator.
There have also been unconfirmed reports of a plane crash near Camp David. People are saying that this is possibly due to the anniversary of Camp David Accords from 1978. Mark and I heard that information earlier today, about 5-10 minutes ago.
Mark Despotakis here stepping in. Just some information just received. The 747 that the plane that crashed in Somerset County that Carrie was referring to, it appears that the plane in that crash in Somerset County was a 747 flight from Chicago to Washington. And Carrie also said we heard about this, what happened in Camp David. Certainly a fluid situation. Things are happening as we speak. What we're generally going to do is we're going to kind of keep with the satellite from CNN.
Right.
And see what their coverage is, and we're going to break in as we get new information. So I don't know if it's possible. Can we go back to that coverage right now and listen in on CNN? Do we have that? Okay, like I said, this is such a fluid situation. In situations like this, now we have it. Let's go to the satellite.
Now it's a United Airlines plane. So we have a number of planes down, a number of planes involved in these attacks. The Boston to Atlanta, if I'm reading the notes correctly, had an American 767 with 81 passengers on board, 9 flight attendants, 2 pilots.
Flight 11.
Reported down. That's American Airlines Flight 11. And American Airlines Flight 77, which is a 757 jetliner, Dulles Airport outside of Washington to Los Angeles International, with 58 passengers on board, 4 flight attendants, 2 pilots, also reported down. And then there is this United Airlines jet which crashed about 80 Pittsburgh.
We should also mention, I think, Aaron, that inevitably some of these early fragmentary reports are going to be needing correction, and that will be done as soon as possible. We had a report of a second hijacked plane on the way to Washington. Capitol Police were reporting that there have been no signs of that plane. We simply, at this point in this awful story, have to just tell our viewers we will do everything we can to report this accurately. If fragmentary reports need amending or correcting, that will be done immediately.
And I think, in fairness here, there is in a number of places right now, perhaps 4 or 5, chaos. And numbers that come out aren't necessarily going to hold up. And in our reporting, we will be a bit conservative on some of this until we track it down. There's no point in allowing this thing to seem worse than it is. It is already horrendous, and we don't need to make it any worse by misstating numbers, and we want you to keep that in mind. CNN Medical Unit reports that the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, the Centers for Disease Control, is preparing bioterrorism teams to respond to the incidents. This, we are told, is simply precautionary. We have absolutely no reports and no evidence that there is any biochemical or bioterrorism going on, but clearly what is happening in every...
It appears that the plane crash in the Somerset County area was the 747 flight from Chicago to Washington, D.C. We'll continue to monitor the story and bring you updates as the story continues.
We certainly want to keep that update as much as we can. You know, Somerset County, certainly close to the area, like
80
you were saying, 80 miles
southeast, yes.
And we're about 80 miles north of Pittsburgh. I want to tell you about something. They're telling me that nothing abnormal has been reported at this time. TV5's Lori Keela is on her way, in fact, out to the Clarion County Airport to see what has been going on there. But as we've said, and I'm sure you're hearing on CNN, no flights in or out anywhere. No international flights are allowed to come into the country. So really, this is very strange in that air traffic
has completely stopped. It is in a time of war. Now, yet we are not at that stage as of yet, but we will keep you reported as to what is exactly happening.
Right.
Also in New York, traffic is pretty much backed up everywhere. Subways are stopped. Bridges are crowded with cars, as you can see. People are being evacuated from the area. Also, tunnels in the New York area are stopped.
We can only imagine it's the same situation in D.C. I haven't heard specifically, but
exactly.
I do have a couple contacts in D.C., and I did try to place some phone calls. I can't even get a ring. I can't get through to anyone in that 202 area code. One of the buildings that I know I was trying to reach is directly across from the Capitol building. We did hear that indeed has been evacuated. The Capitol has been evacuated. We've been hearing from reporters. And take a look at this. I mean, this is a picture that certainly we never thought we would ever see. The Pentagon, and you know, the Pentagon has never been attacked. And here it is, our center of defense has been attacked. I'm not sure where this picture is coming from. Let's listen back in on CNN.
That United Airlines is now saying that flight, can you tell me the number of the flight, 93, has crashed in Pennsylvania. Now, a flight from Newark, New Jersey to San Francisco. Now, we don't know if this is the same airplane that Aaron was reporting a little earlier crashed in Somerset County near Pittsburgh. Aaron had reported that some minutes.
There you hear Judy Woodruff from CNN talking about a United Airlines flight. Let's just say that she's talking about, is that Somerset or not? We just don't know at this point. There was that plane that crashed in Somerset County. That one we did hear, where did we hear that one from? Is this the one?
Yes.
From New York to
Washington, D.C.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, that's something else. We did hear, Judy Woodruff is telling us now that this was from Newark to San Francisco. Not what we heard before. From Chicago to Washington is what we heard before. You know, we don't know. Let me just keep saying this to the viewers. This is a very fluid situation. Certainly nothing like this. I've never seen anything like this, obviously.
The National Guard, we have also been heard, has been put on alert. Fighter jets have been put on alert as well to have the area with extra military force and security there. We have not heard any information from President Bush for the past half hour or so. Last we heard, he was on Air Force One. He was actually in the air. He did speak earlier this morning, stating that this is a terrorist attack, and that something will be done.
Right. Some quotes from Bush this morning. He called this obviously a national tragedy, and that was just at the very beginning before it has turned to what it is now. He's ordering the full resources to help the families, and he also asked for a moment of silence. I'm trying to find something in my notes here. Earlier this morning, just to recap some of the things that were happening this morning. Right when we had first heard about these two planes crashing into the World Trade Center, I believe it was ABC News, spoke with some folks inside the building. You mentioned earlier, I heard you were saying, we just don't know how many people are injured, how many people are dead, and we're seeing triage happening out there.
Phone lines are tied up, and
the Pentagon is unclear from all the news reports that I've seen. The one report that said it crashed into the Army side of the building. There are command centers in various places of the Pentagon, and there are many other alternate command centers. So I don't think there's really any issue about the command and control of the United States Armed Forces. I'm sure that's very solid right now.
General Clark, why do you say there's likely to be more trouble?
Well, we're hearing still reports of aircraft that are out there. There's no way of knowing when all of the possible incidents have either taken place or been aborted by whoever it is that's behind this. And so we have to be ready for whatever might happen next.
General, can you give us some sense of, clearly the United States has never experienced anything of this magnitude, but what are the leaders of our military, the Joint Chiefs, the Secretary of Defense and others, what presumably are they doing right now in order to be on top of a situation where you have the Pentagon on fire, New York City in a state of chaos, and every federal building in Washington evacuated?
Well, first of all, we'll be trying to assess what happened. We'll be making sure that the protection posture of our bases worldwide and all of our units out there is raised so that we're able to protect our forces and our family members, and then we'll be looking to provide assistance to wherever such incidents might occur. Whatever military capabilities there will be that could be of use will be certainly made available to the other agencies of state, local, and federal government who are involved in trying to deal with these tragedies right now. Then beyond that, we'll be waiting for the information to come in about who may have been behind this, and we'll be looking at what measures can be taken to strike and prevent further actions or in punitive retaliation.
Well, speaking of that, General Clark, wouldn't you agree there are very few of the terrorist groups, at least that we're familiar with, who would have the capability to pull off something this coordinated on this scale?
I think that's exactly right. There's only one group that has ever indicated that it has this kind of ability, and that's Osama bin Laden's. So obviously that'll be first suspicion.
Are you, clearly we are all in a state of shock, General Clark, but is it fair to say that you're not truly surprised by this, given what we've heard from this, but given what we do know?
Well, there have been many threats made against the United States, threats of terrorism, and we know that the World Trade Center target. We know that aircraft have been hijacked. Bombings are used in many places in the world, and doubt that for a long time there have been groups who have tried to target the United States. Normally, many times we've gotten indicators, we've been able to take actions that the never knows about that have broken up these attempts. In this case, for a reason, we didn't have the information and we weren't able to take the actions to break it up.
Say to those Americans who are that they've been watching now for who are thinking, never feel safe again, an airplane in a building in this country?
I think that will be one of the prime issues that has to be addressed by ever a sense of normalcy in the country. Will it ever be the same? I think it's too early now. There's greater cooperation between nations to deal with this by someone, and that these events were being planned. And if that's one resolve that will come out of this collectively together.
But in a large sense, General Clark, whoever was behind this horrific and devastating way.
Well, it's been a tragedy for American people and their families. Our hearts go up.
From helicopters patrolling, I believe it's the area around the Pentagon, although I can't tell. We do know that President Bush was in Florida this morning. He abruptly ordered, we think, Washington. And General Clark, while you are with us, what would the situation information necessarily return to Washington, a plan?
Well, there would have to be ways to take he can best control what's going on and monitor that he will be safe and be sure that the continuity of government.
And once again, just finally, General Clark, as we look at these live pictures of the Pentagon, describe for us what you know of the section of the building that evidently was hit by the commercial jetliner.
Well, that picture seems to be from the area of the bridges, the 14th Street Bridge, looking at the corner of the Pentagon that is opposite from where the strike was. So it looks like the strike hit between the 4th, 5th, maybe 6th corridors of the Pentagon. Perhaps on the Army side of the building, there are a number of offices there, administrative offices, where Army leaders and staff officers work on a daily basis. They deal with things like planning and logistics and congressional relations and public affairs in that area. And the Army leadership was probably close to where that may have impacted. There are a number of other facilities below ground, some of which have been relocated, and it's impossible to see from that picture what the condition might be there.
General Clark, any final word before we let you go?
I think that we can stop planning this. I think they know that the men, women, and government, all these, very obviously we grew up. We didn't have the option that we needed to have prevented it. And you can be sure that those men and women are right now resolved to do more and to be more effective. This is a national challenge, and I'm confident that we'll meet it.
Airlines.
That's right, Judy. Bringing you an update on the 747 that crashed in the Somerset area. United Airlines has confirmed that it's one of their flights from New York, New Jersey to San Francisco that has crashed in Pittsburgh. That has been confirmed once again by the United Airlines.
Let's go ahead and just continue taking a look at some of the pictures coming from CNN. I'm just going to kind of give you a little brief update about what we know. First, let me tell you some things locally. Everything seems to be going as normal here. Nothing really happening in Clarion. We spoke with emergency management a little earlier. They're telling us everything is as usual. I just got off the phone with our reporter out at the airport. They said a plane actually landed at the county airport, so things are going normal. Of course, yes. The Clarion County Airport not going to have 737s and things flying into it, but you know, they do have
things are normal here in Clarion as of now.
If we can, I'd like to take a look at some of the pictures still coming off the satellite. And let me just go ahead and while we're looking at these pictures, just give you some kind of an overview of everything that's happened, because this all started, you know, about 9 a.m. this morning when we had a plane crash into the tower of the World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan. As I said, that was shortly before 9 a.m. 18 minutes later, a second plane crashed into the other tower. You saw some of that video just a little bit earlier, and here, that was actually the shot of the World Trade Center, and you could see some of the smoke from there. Both of those happened around 9 a.m. this morning. Then we saw President Bush. He was in Sarasota, Florida, and he called the crash an apparent terroristic attack and a national tragedy. They had a moment of silence as well. And then, as we were reporting on this, we got word that an aircraft crashed near the Pentagon just outside of Washington in Northern Virginia, over there in Arlington, Virginia. That was about an hour after everything happened in New York. Government buildings in Washington, including the Capitol, the White House, have been evacuated, and officials saying there was a credible threat of terrorist attack. Now, I mentioned this a little earlier. I know some folks down in D.C. placed some phone calls. I couldn't even get a ring when I called.
Telephone lines are tied up.
Right, and as you can imagine, I'm sure it's what's happening in New York as well. Let me ask the guys upstairs, can we go back can we see the satellite? Is that possible? All right, okay, there's nothing coming over the satellite right now. Maybe we can actually recue some tape of some things happened earlier. Like I said, very fluid situation. Things are happening. Carrie, why don't you recap what's happening in Somerset County for us?
Okay, Somerset County, as I said earlier, it's a flight from, the United Airlines. They have confirmed that once again, and it was a 747 that crashed in the Pittsburgh area. That is 80 miles, Somerset County is 80 miles southeast of Pittsburgh, which makes it about 80 miles from us here in Clarion.
We're 80 miles north of Pittsburgh.
Right, so. But 80 miles north here in Clarion, so we are from that area. Telephone lines are tied up. We have not had confirmation if that is tied into the World Trade Center or the Pentagon for the crash in those areas. We will keep you updated on what is happening here in area.
You know, we were talking earlier, we saw some of these pictures from New York. Traffic is in with, but traffic was very much tied up. Continuing and just looking down this kind of rundown, we see a pretty dramatic video of one of the World Trade Center towers collapsed. The thing just looks like it went almost right through the building. You know, this, like we've been saying, this be the good word for it. Something like this we've never seen, but we should reiterate that things going on here in Clarion seem to be going on as normal, carrying on in town, and everything looked to be...
everything is fine here in Clarion. As we said earlier, our flight just landed here in Clarion. However, I believe after that, since air traffic has been stopped everywhere else.
We're going to see if we can't confirm that information.
Exactly.
What I love about the flights is that the FAA has stopped flights in and out of airports all around the country, as well as international flights in. Let me continue to recount the stuff, and let me apologize right now. We don't have any video for you at the moment because I'm not sure what's going on upstairs. It's a very fluid situation. Things are happening very quickly. Things are happening fast. Okay, I understand we're having some technical problems upstairs, but that's not going to stop us. We're certainly going to. Let me just go ahead and continue. New York Stock Exchange. Trading has stopped. Financial markets suspended. Earlier, I was seeing a reporter on the floor of the stock exchange, and she said, "Look at the floor. There's soot everywhere on the floor." So, certainly, this is something that's affecting all aspects. A major city like New York, of course. Let me just continue here. American Airlines says one of the planes that got to Trade Center was hijacked after takeoff en route to Los Angeles. Senior law enforcement officials say a car bomb exploded outside of the State Department.
Inaccurate.
That did not actually occur. As I said, financial markets have suspended trading. Carrie, let's just recap this. I think this is quite a good local story to be talking about.
Once again, Somerset County, it was a 747 flight from New York, New Jersey to San Francisco. That flight was theirs, and it has crashed. And we almost have CNN information for you here. We'll have that for you in just a moment. But that is what is happening in the Pittsburgh area. United Airlines confirmed that at about 11:30 this morning, that is tied in to the other plane crashes in Washington, D.C. and in New York.
Right, and that's something we may certainly not know for a while. Authorities across the country are of course, on heightened alert. They've tightened security at strategic facilities and have evacuated high-profile buildings, U.S. monuments, and museums in Washington. I can imagine Washington is probably almost totally closed down in a situation like this. Let me ask upstairs, how are we doing? Do we have any tape to show to the folks upstairs? Do we have any tape upstairs at this point? Okay. I'm being told that we don't right now. Reiterating some things. One thing that I brought up a little bit earlier was something that ABC did that was quite. I'm sometimes at a loss for words here. I can't even think of the adjective to describe it. They were talking to someone inside the World Trade Center after the first plane had gone that I'm blanking dying. And then there was some noise in the background, and the line went dead. They tried to call again, and couldn't actually get back. And as we said, President Bush is on his way right now to the White House. He was in Florida for an event this morning. He came out and addressed the nation, saying that we will certainly look for some resolution to this.
There are also firefighters earlier today at the World Trade Center that were dumping water on to try and lower the amount of soot and debris that's in the area. Once again, hospitals are being filled with injuries. We don't know exactly the number of fatalities or injuries at this point, but people are being taken care of at the different hospitals throughout New York, and I'm sure the same is true in Washington. Areas have been evacuated, once again, in the Pentagon area, the Capitol, the White House, and that's what we know as of right now.
Yeah, you may remember that there was a World Trade Center bombing back on February 26th of 1993. That was quite an incident that made some news, but that was on the lower levels of the building, and now we're seeing this of more magnitude, obviously. Earlier this morning, I believe this came from NBC News, in talking with some United States officials, and these officials said, quote, "There is no doubt about it. This is clearly terrorist related." That is what President Bush came out and said early, and that's what we have some top U.S. officials saying as well. And of course, Bush called this a national tragedy. And I'm just getting something else right here. Hence, officials are responding to the terrorist situation. Pennsylvania Governor Tom Ridge is flying from Erie into Harrisburg, and he will give a statement from the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency. The Capitol complex in Harrisburg has been closed, and all employees have been told to go home. Harrisburg and Capitol Police are on highest alert. There have been no incidents at the state capitol, taking precautions. I'm sure this is something we're seeing all across the country in other states as well.
The Mayor Giuliani, once again, as I can just recap what he said this morning in an interview with CNN, he said this is a tragedy once again, as everybody is saying, and everybody is correct in saying that this is a definite tragedy, but everybody needs to, there's not much that we can do besides helping other people, he said, you know, trying to stay calm and trying to keep everyone else calm at the same time. That's basically all that we can do until we know more information from the government or other affiliates that are feeding us information.
One thing we saw obviously there were a lot of injuries we don't have. We did see a lot of triaging going on in places like the World Trade Center, and in fact I saw some pictures from the Pentagon a little bit earlier where in fact they're treating some patients on the lawn outside of there in the Pentagon. And for anyone who's ever been to Arlington, Virginia, and is kind of familiar with the Pentagon campus, it is a humongous building, and in fact, there was still a reporter doing a live shot inside. We were watching that, and he says, you know what, the building is so big that we don't even know what's going on over there. The reason he said he knew something was going on is he kind of heard that there were some noises outside. He looked out in the hall, saw some security guards running, kind of shuffling, construction workers outside leaving, because as you know, they've been doing a lot of work on the Pentagon. They've been taking in sections and working to reconstruct and renovate sections of the building. Now, even the campus outside of that Pentagon building, we work there, and then of course there is a grassy area outside around it. And the Pentagon is, of course, the center of our military operations. And for something like that, a little bit more information coming in, to happen at the Pentagon, only put U.S. officials on a heightened alert.
Just this coming in from Mayor Rudolph Giuliani, again of New York, said that there could be a horrendous number of lives lost. The NYPD say the number of injuries could be in the thousands. But once again, we do not have an exact confirmed number of injuries or deaths at this point in time. Once again, there's a horrendous number of lives are lost.
And New York, of course, the largest city in the nation, but even they could not be prepared for something like this. One would think they do have quite a number of medical facilities there, but you have to imagine that it's probably bedlam down there. I'm hoping we're going to be able to see some more pictures of what's going on.
CNN earlier was saying that helicopters are being brought in to remove the injured people just because traffic is so backed up. It's going to be hard for ambulances to get through. So helicopters are being brought in to take the people out of the area. And going back to what you said earlier of the Pentagon and hearing the crash, hearing the noise there, they were also saying on CNN that 2 blocks away people could hear the noise that was being made at the World Trade Center. When the debris was flying, I heard it flew about 2 blocks close to an elementary school area, but that area has also been evacuated.
You know, we keep saying that this story is something that certainly neither of us have ever seen, and it's very difficult to cover a story like this. I mean, I'm sure you could be flipping around right now and looking that what everyone is doing. They're reporting just as we are, and we're lucky enough to have CNN at our disposal, being one of their affiliates, that we are able to take some of their coverage. What we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to break away from our coverage right now. We're going to work on getting some of these technical problems fixed with CNN, and then we're going to be back live with you with new information as soon as we possibly can. So we do hope you will stay with us. This is a TV5 News Special Report. In Manhattan, Pataki is urging all New Yorkers to remain calm. All state government offices in New York City have been closed as a precaution, and all workers not involved in the emergency response have indeed been sent home. Now, Mayor Rudolph Giuliani said there could be a, quote, horrendous number of lives lost. NYPD says the number of injuries could be in the thousands. Let's take a listen at what Mayor Giuliani had to say a little earlier this morning.
technical difficulties. The picture that you just saw was not exactly live. That was actually from earlier today. Giuliani was just discussing exactly what had happened in New York with the World Trade Center. The Trade Center has collapsed. Giuliani was just asking for everyone to be calm and to be helpful to other people, just to try to keep everybody calm and to try and pray for everyone. They're also asking that everyone stays off the streets, try and stay off of the roadways, just because traffic is backed up as it is, because hospitals are being filled with patients, and they're trying to look out for the best interest of everyone. I now have Lori Killa here with me, who has some information from this morning. We actually have some close to home information here at Clarion. We're going to see a little bit of a sound bite that she had earlier. She went down to the Clarion airport to interview a pilot, who actually had some eyewitness to the incident. So can we take to that package right now?
So I just kept on flying, and I heard other controllers talking to other planes, also telling them to land. And when I called back Wilkes-Barre approach, I said, well, look, I'd like to get in touch with Cleveland approach. And they said, anything under the New York envelope, there's no communication.
They put the wrong name on them.
So I start flying up this way, and I heard other planes asking advisories to land, so I decided I'd land here at Clarion. So I took off from Westchester County Airport in White Plains.
I'm on 3.
And as soon as I was up to a couple of thousand feet, I could see the Twin Towers, because it's right down the Hudson River. I might have been maybe about 14, 15 miles from it. And I could see smoke, tremendous amounts of smoke billowing out of both buildings. And I just kept on flying VFR, and I got in touch with Wilkes-Barre approach.
Where?
And because I wanted to get the altimeter setting as it changes.
Over. Okay.
And Wilkes-Barre approach advised me that all planes should land.
Now here with Lori Killa, just ask her a few more questions. Lori, you went down to the airport earlier today to get some information from this pilot. Now, can you just give me a little bit of information as to where he was flying from and so forth?
Yes, he was on his way to New York to visit some relatives, and he was flying back, and his relatives didn't fly with him. They drove for some reason, and he said he was on his way back, and he saw the Twin Towers on smoke. So he called on his CB to tell them, the radar, that they were on smoke, and they informed him that they did know that they were on smoke. So he just went on his way, and he was going to try to land in the Cleveland area in Sandusky, and they told him that anything in the New York envelope was closed down, that you would not be able to land anywhere. So then that's when he flew to Clarion, and they allowed him to land here. So he was waiting for his family to make sure that they were okay and everything.
But he was an eyewitness to the incident, and you had said earlier that we had made a little bit of a mistake on his name.
Yes, that was not Serge Vallon. That was Dr. Carl Zybert, and he's a veterinarian. So from there.
Okay, just a couple more quick questions. When you went down, Lori, does everything seem to be calm and collected down at the airport?
Yes, I talked to another pilot, and I asked him if this was affecting the Clarion airport or, Clarion County in any way, and they said no, as of now, nothing is happening, that we're pretty safe. They haven't heard anything at the airport with any of their planes, so as of now, we're safe.
Okay. Thank you, Lori. We have some CNN footage that we're going to show you right now.
On Shanksville, and to get
We're done. Did I do good? Did I do enough?
to my left is a huge field of corn. To my right is a rolling green pastoral hill here at the edge of the Allegheny Mountains. One of the last places you would probably expect to be touched by the violence of an act of terrible terrorism like we have seen today. But people here in the area have reported that they saw the commercial airliner going overhead at about 2,000 to 3,000 feet with no landing gear down. They heard then a loud roar of an engine, at which point the jet climbed and then banked sharply to the left before going down straight on a 45-degree angle. Now, it hit the ground at that 45-degree angle. People here at the scene say there are no large pieces of debris even left from the plane. No hope of, at this point, it seems to be no hope of survivors. There's just about every piece of emergency personnel here from miles around. The mood is considerably calmer, as you might imagine, than what you might see in Washington or New York, but there is a great deal of concern. Schools are being closed, businesses are being closed up into Pittsburgh and other parts of Pennsylvania. Prayer vigils are being reported, scheduled all across this part of Pennsylvania as far as away as Altoona has been reported. Also, at this point, there has been an emergency staging area set up. We are a good ways away from the crash scene, and we will see what transpires here. Judy?
David Mattingly on the scene, as we're saying there, near Shanksville, a small town in Somerset County, about 80 miles south of Pittsburgh. This the site of one of the two United Airlines aircraft. This a Boeing 757 left Newark, New Jersey this morning on its way to San Francisco. This is the plane that we know crashed, and you just, with David Mattingly's report, looking at the site of where this plane came down. We don't know where, we presume terrorists behind this, what their destination was, what their target was. We can only presume, we can only guess that they were short of the target, that they were headed someplace farther, someplace else from where they landed. With me now here in the studio, Connecticut Democratic Senator Christopher Dodd. Senator Dodd, a longtime member of not only the Senate, but of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Senator Dodd, first of all, what can you say to the American people listening who want to know about the security of the leaders of our country, the President, and everyone else?
Well, I think they've taken the proper steps in here, and you haven't heard as much from some of the leaders as you might like at this point, but I think those responsible for their security are doing exactly what they should be doing. I'm told that they're in very good shape, that they are being isolated because we don't know the magnitude of this effort. It's beyond our
There was Judy Woodruff introing and explaining about the Somerset County, the plane crash that was there. We now have some a soundbite from KDKA about an eyewitness. So let's take a look at that.
What were you doing and what did you see?
I went out to hang up my clothes, and I heard a little, like a sonic boom, like the plane, you know, the airplanes make, and it came over atop of me, okay, and it wobbled just a little bit, and then it really low, you know, around this area, and I seen it bank to the right, and I thought, well, maybe it's going to the Freedom's Airport, but whenever it banked, it went straight down. And it crashed, and I've seen the smoke and the flame come up, and it was terrible.
All right, Linda, let me get this correct now. You thought you heard some sort of explosion or a boom before the plane went down. Is that right?
Right. I thought it was there, you know, how the sonic sound.
All right. And then the plane kept flying for a little bit and then started to bank and then just what, went nose down?
Yes, it came straight down.
How close were they to the airport there?
Oh, about 3 miles.
Do you think they were trying to make it to the airport?
I don't see how they could, because that airport is too small to handle something that large.
Well, I mean, obviously the plane was in trouble.
All right, that was once again an eyewitness account of earlier incidents this morning. Just a recap of things that have happened today. The World Trade Center was attacked this morning. 2 planes crashed into the Twin Towers, and the tower has collapsed. Okay. We have some of the information from the Giuliani tape that we were talking about earlier, so we're going to try and get that on the air right now.
South of Canal Street. Walk. And walk slowly, carefully. There are plenty of police around, but just walk directly. If you can't figure out what else to do, just walk directly north. That'll get you out of the dangerous smoke area. It'll also do us a big favor. It'll open up those streets, because we're going to be moving a large number of ambulances and emergency personnel in and out of there all day. I've talked to the governor. He is putting the National Guard on alert so that they can relieve our police officers and our firefighters later this afternoon. And we've asked the federal government for help from the urban search and rescue team. So right now, We're using all of our police and firefighters and emergency personnel to help the people down there. Later on, we're probably going to need reinforcements.
Mayor Giuliani, I realize that it must be more than a chaotic situation, particularly since the bunker has been compromised and cordoned off. But can you give us any sense? There are so many people watching now who must have loved ones down in that area and are concerned of the systematic...
My heart goes out to them. I've never seen anything like this. I was there from shortly after it happened and saw people jumping out of the World Trade Center. It's a horrible, horrible situation. And all that I can tell them is that every resource that we have is attempting to rescue as many people as possible. And the end result is going to be some horrendous number of lives lost. I don't think we know yet. But right now, we have to just focus on saving as many people as possible.
Can you give us a sense of if there is, in fact, some system being implemented, what that system is, and where people are being taken?
People are triaging. People are being taken to every area hospital possible, even virtually within minutes. I drove down right past St. Vincent's Hospital, and I could see them actually on the street ready to take people, and that was within minutes of the first airplane hitting the World Trade Center. So the hospitals are ready. We'll be moving them to all different area hospitals, triaging them. The main thing is having those streets open so that we can get people in and out of the southern part of Manhattan as quickly as possible so that we can move them, to hospitals all over the city.
And Mayor Giuliani, we'll let you...
in place. They're doing it. We just need the cooperation of people in getting out of there.
We'll let you get back to the operations there, and we do appreciate you taking the time for us here.
Okay, but once again, the only thing to do now is to remain calm and try to assist in the rescue effort.
Thank you.
Now let's pray.
All of us.
Thank you.
Thank you again, and we hope...
A couple more notes here for you. This just into us. Government officials say 5 battleships and 2 aircraft carriers have moved out of port on the East Coast. The ships are traveling to the New York and Washington, D.C. areas to give security support for these areas. And news on the local front, Clarion University's president, Dr. Diane Reinhardt, says the university is continuing to monitor the tragic events as they unfold across the country, and says that as of now, class schedules are to continue as normal. She said, quote, "Our hearts go out to the victims of today's terrible tragedies across the nation." Carrie?
Thank you, Mark. What we'll be doing today is we're going to try and get some county commissioners and possibly the president to come down. I need to give you the number once again. The number that you can call, the hotline number, is 1-800-932-8555. That is for Flight 93 from the United Airlines from New Jersey to San Francisco. So if you have any questions about that, you can call that number once again, 1-800-932-8555.
Let me just jump in with something. I've just been told in my ear that all PSAC events, that's the athletic conference for universities like Clarion, those events have been canceled for today. I don't know what beyond that. Major League Baseball has also canceled their games for tonight, and we'll report to you back later on when that'll be.
We will keep you updated with more information that is coming up. We will be back at about 3 o'clock to give you more information of what is happening here in Clarion, the rest of Western Pennsylvania, and the rest of the world. Stay tuned with us here at TV5 News. Good afternoon, I'm Carrie LaPoo.
And I'm Mark Despotakis, updating you on the events going on around the nation today. It has been quite a day. We want to start off by showing you some really powerful footage that just came over the satellite a little bit earlier. This is from, I believe, WNYW in New York, and that is those are the World Trade Center buildings there. That is all the smoke that came from the buildings, and I'm hoping in here there's a shot of a cameraman literally running away from the building. But if you take a look at all these different shots, I mean, this is New York City, the nation's largest City. While we're doing this, I'm going to go ahead and read you some of the recapped information I have. A state of alert in Washington and in New York City after fiery aircraft crashes at the World Trade Center and in the Pentagon in Northern Virginia. Hospitals in both cities have been inundated with the victims, with hundreds and possibly thousands injured or killed. In the nation's capital, ambulances and emergency crews struggled to get through the gridlock as massive evacuations forced cars and people onto Washington's streets. Federal buildings in the nation's capital have been closed and near the White House. Police secured a perimeter around the White House, keeping people blocks away from the White House grounds. And some information I just got in, New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani had a press conference just a little bit ago, and he said that about 150 critically injured people in this morning's attacks on the World Trade Center have been removed from the scene by emergency medical personnel. Giuliani also says there are 600 being treated at local hospitals. In addition, a triage center has been set up at Liberty Park where 1,500 of what he calls the walking wounded have been taken. Giuliani says there are some 2,000 rescue workers trying to enter buildings and searching for people. At this point, Giuliani is not going to venture to guess on the total number of casualties. One also thing, planes were brought down immediately after this all began to happen, and this is what came out from the Flight Data Center, a special notice to pilots saying, quote, "Attention all aircraft operators. By order of the Federal Aviation Command Center, all airports, airdomes are not authorized for landing and takeoff. All traffic, including airborne aircraft, are encouraged to land shortly." So that is that. We're going to go over to Carrie here now with a little bit more information on the crash that happened just south of Pittsburgh, east of Pittsburgh.
Thank you, Mark. For those of you just tuning in, Boeing 757 crashed in the Somerset County area today, 8 miles out of Jennerstown in the Laurel Mountain region. What you're seeing here is the wreckage rubble from the site. We just got a word from one of the passengers. A passenger made a frantic call for help shortly before the plane crashed near Somerset. Quote, "We are being hijacked. We are being hijacked." The man told dispatchers as the plane was going down near Shanksville. The man had locked himself in the bathroom and made the call with his cell phone. Also, a U.S. congressman is saying that the plane that crashed near Somerset may have been headed for the presidential retreat at Camp David. Virginia Democrat James Moran says he got his information at a Marine Corps briefing earlier today. Once again, we have a number that you can look for if you're having information about any of those people who were on Flight 93 in the Somerset area, that plane that was headed from New Jersey to San Francisco. And I'll have that number for you right now, 1-800-932-8555. We now have an eyewitness who saw the Somerset plane crash, so we'll take it to that rolling right now as soon as we can get that up for you.
I happened to heard a plane come through. It sounded like it was running normal. When it come down over top of me, I seen it go nosedive straight into the ground down here. Everything was running fine when it sounded like.
What was its position as it went towards the ground?
It was just coming down like it was going to land, but instead of landing, it just went nose straight into the ground.
Just a recap before we go into what's happening here in Clarion. Pennsylvania doctors are being asked to be ready to help care for casualties in today's terroristic attacks. The Pennsylvania Medical Society has been asked by state officials to begin collecting names of volunteer doctors who would be ready to travel to either New York or Washington, D.C. Happening in Clarion, the Venango Airport has heightened security. The airport is closed, and also here in Clarion, tonight at 7 o'clock in the parking lot of First Presbyterian, there will be a candlelight vigil, also at 7 o'clock at Zion Presbyterian Church. Here in Clarion at the courthouse, there is heightened security for all entering the courthouse. There has been a metal detector set up. One entrance is only open into the courthouse, and the security has also been heightened there with the sheriff and his deputies there. Clarion County emergency management officials say there is nothing out of the ordinary happening in our area, and they ask that people remain calm and monitor events as they unfold. County officials say that the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Authority has been in contact with the county and have asked for an increased terrorist readiness level 1 code. What this means is that the county government is to continue to monitor events across the nation and to activate the County Emergency Operations Center. The Sheriff's Office has beefed up security at the county courthouse and at the county jail. The courthouse is what you saw earlier here. And now what we're going to do is turn it over to Mark.
I'm from Jersey, and my sister lives in Newark, about maybe a mile from Newark Airport. She can see the city from where she lives, and I still haven't gotten a hold of her. I don't know where she is right now.
I remember the shock of when I was in the 7th grade when John F. Kennedy was assassinated.
Shock, disbelief, horror. Felt sick to my stomach upon hearing the news. Certainly we need to find out what exactly is going on and how this type of attack was coordinated, but just intense sadness and shock that this could happen at home.
That some reaction from some folks here in Clarion, and we're going to get some more reaction now. State Representative Fred McElhatton joining us. What's your reaction to what's happened today?
First of all, Mark, let me say I was shocked because I never believed such acts of terrorism would ever occur within the borders of the United States. And let me say right off that my prayers go out to those that are injured and to the families that lost loved ones in these terrible, senseless acts of terrorism. I think we need to understand now in the United States we're moving into a whole new challenging and difficult era in governing within this country, because now for the first time major senseless acts of terrorism have occurred within the border of the United States. That's something that's very difficult for us to grasp. That's something we look at it happening in Palestine and Israel and other places around the world. Now it's happening within our own borders. And this is going to be a major challenge for all of us, and especially for those in government, of how we deal with these things, how we handle these things. This is a country that's probably the most open and most free in the world. And it is vulnerable to terrorism, and the day has finally come, and we are in a whole new era, and things are going to be different from here on in. Let me say, I think there's basically 3 things we need to do in a situation like this. First is triage. You need to treat those that have been injured, and those psychologically and both physically, and we need to deal with that first. Then the second one, the thing we need to do is detection. We need to find out who's responsible for these acts of terrorism. And the third thing is we need to take out those that are responsible for this act of terrorism. And if you look at this on the forefront, groups that could be responsible, it could be someone else, but Osama bin Laden, of course, who's harbored in Afghanistan, has been doing this for quite some time. His finger on this, and the other person we need to look at is probably Saddam Hussein. And we're on a whole new where we go from here, I don't know, but I think we need 3. And
what do we say? What do we do to them?
One, it has to let people know that we are. Something like this happen. I think this is acts of terrorism, and we will deal with.
Actually, we're going to start with Palestinian Liberation Organization President Yasser Arafat.
It's very difficult for me personally, for anyone happening. It is not only against the Americans. It is not only against the American people or against the American government. It's against the whole international human being. Unbelievable, unbelievable. I'm sending my my condolences for President Bush, for his government, for his American people, for this unbelievable disaster what happened. This is touching our hearts. And this is very difficult to explain my feelings, my pain. God help them. God help them. God help them.
We are all traumatized by this terrible tragedy. We do not yet know how many people have been killed or injured, but inevitably the number will be high. Our first thoughts and prayers must be for them and for their families. I wish to express my profound condolences to them and to the people and government of the United States. There can be no doubt that these attacks are deliberate acts of terrorism, carefully planned and coordinated, and as such, I condemn them utterly. Terrorism must be fought resolutely wherever it appears. In such moments, cool and reasoned judgment are more essential than ever. We do not know yet who is behind these acts or what objective they hope to achieve. What we do know is that no just cause can be advanced by terror.
And let me just give you a quick recap here. A state of alert in Washington, D.C. and in New York City after fiery aircraft crashes at the World Trade Center and at the Pentagon in Northern Virginia, also a plane crash in Somerset, Pennsylvania, not too far from here. Hospitals in New York and Washington are inundated with the victims, and we're just now starting to get some of the numbers of the victims, and of course we're going to have that later.
Right. What we're going to be seeing before we head out here is President Bush giving a little updated information of what he has to say about the incidents here. What we'll also have later tonight at 5 o'clock, we will be back here giving you more information of what is happening here in Clarion. Possibly by then we will have some more numbers of the fatalities and injuries that are happening in New York, Washington, and in Somerset. But now, for TV5 News, we're going to head it over to what President Bush had to say.
Freedom itself was attacked this morning by a faceless coward. I want to reassure the American people that the full resources of the federal government just always to save lives and to help the victims of these attacks. Make no mistake, the United States will hunt down and punish those responsible for these cowardly acts. I've been in regular contact with the Vice President, Secretary of Defense, the National Security Team, and my cabinet. We have taken all appropriate security precautions to protect the American people. Our military at home and around the world is on high alert status, and we have taken the necessary security precautions to continue the functions of your government. We have been in touch with the leaders of Congress and with world leaders to assure them that we will do whatever is necessary to protect America and Americans. I ask the American people to join me in saying a thanks for all the folks who have been fighting hard to rescue our fellow citizens, and to join me in saying a prayer for the victims and their families. The resolve of our great nation is being tested, but make no mistake, we will show the world that we will pass this test. God bless.
Good afternoon. I'm Mark Despotakis.
And I'm Carrie LaPoo. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to give you a brief summary and a recap of what has been happening today. We have some information as to everything that's been happening today, starting with this morning with the World Trade Center. 2 planes crashed into it today, and it has collapsed. We're trying to get some video up here, a screen for you to see everything that's been happening. There we go. Today's events, the World Trade Towers collapsed. 4 planes have been hijacked. All national airports are closed. Unidentified aircraft crashes into the Pentagon. We're not exactly sure what type yet, and all federal buildings have been evacuated.
Actually, I believe we did hear that what went in the Pentagon was one of those American Airlines planes.
Okay,
but
what
take a
you're
look at
seeing
that.
right now is some still shots of the second airplane through the world tower. This is the second headed directly for it, and you can see where it hit in the explosion that occurred with that.
Now take a look at this tape. This is what I think is the most telling piece of tape I've seen all day. This is a cameraman from WNYW in New York. I believe it's the Fox station. I'm not sure on that though. Look at that. The building is actually falling as they are running from it. He is running, and he's obviously holding the camera. But you saw just the building just collapsed, and of course they were set up to do a shot and to cover this. And look, you can see there you go. It's coming from that side as well. Here's just some other shots of the collapse. Just really an amazing sight. This is a look at the Pentagon. Actually, some firefighters fighting the blaze at the Pentagon after that plane went down there and into the Pentagon. This came some 45 minutes to an hour after the original 2 planes hit the World Trade Center in New York City. Quite a planned attack. If this turns out to be something that if they turn out to be all related, as it's certainly looking now, but certainly a well-planned attack, not well-planned. Unfortunate, it's unfortunate.
What you're seeing right now is some of the footage from the Somerset crash earlier today, which is about 80 miles southeast of Pittsburgh. A plane crashed into the area. It was hijacked earlier today. Also giving you a local bulletin of what's been happening in our area. There will be a prayer vigil tonight. There will actually be 2 of them, one at Zion Baptist Church and also one at the First Presbyterian Church. Both are at 7 o'clock, and they will be praying for the different events that have been happening today and for families and friends of the victims. Also today, the Venango Airport heightened security. The airport is closed, and there's more security there. Also, the Du Bois Airport, there's no aircraft coming in or out of that as well. And peace acts have been canceled here at Clarion University. The Red Cross has been asking for blood in the New York and Washington areas, but nothing here as of right now. But that is what's happening. Right now, what we have here in the studio, we have Valerie Hill, who has some information, local perspectives.
I don't know if she's ready yet.
Okay.
She is.
All right, she's ready to go. She has some local perspectives. She's live here in our newsroom. Valerie?
I first found out about this horrific incident in my class this morning. My heart sank in disbelief. This was the feeling of many Americans today. Earlier today, I had the chance to interview Dr. Stanton Green of Clarion Campus, Dean of Arts and Sciences, and his secretary, Tony Kelso.
The news, it became real, and I had feelings to make sure my family was okay, and they were in the loop on this and understood it. And I called my wife and went home to have lunch with my wife and kids to make sure the kids understood what was going on.
I'm sure I share the same sentiments as all Americans. It's pretty devastating to see what has happened in our world today. How could it happen, and why? How could it have been prevented?
And of course, all kinds of rumors are occurring, especially since part of the incident was outside of Pittsburgh. So we've had various emails and so forth with regard to the cancellation of classes, which of course they were not canceled, and several people came in and asked and so forth, and we got correspondent communication from the president.
Although many people may know what happened today, very few understand. Hopefully later today we will be able to get some answers. This is Valerie Hill, live in the newsroom. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Valerie. Let me just give you some more local information, what's going on in Clarion County. Clarion County emergency management officials say there is nothing out of the ordinary happening in our area, and they ask people to remain calm and monitor events as they unfold. County officials say that the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Authority has been in contact with the county and asked for a, quote, increased terrorist readiness level 1 code. This means the county government is to continue to monitor events across the nation and to activate the County Emergency Operations Center. The Sheriff's Office has beefed up security at the county courthouse and the county jail. And on the campus of Clarion University's president, Dr. Diane Reinhardt, says the university is continuing to monitor the tragic events as they unfold across the country, and says that as of now, class schedules are to continue as normal. She said, quote, our hearts go out to the victims of today's terrible tragedies across the nation. Back to some national information. I was telling you a little bit earlier today that I was trying to contact some folks in Washington, D.C., and I wasn't able to because I wasn't able to get through on the phone line. Well, I was able to successfully speak with someone I know down there, and he's currently in the Arlington, Virginia area, and what he said was, he says, as he looks out of his window right now, it is a, quote, eerie sight to look and see smoke coming up in front of the Washington Monument. That's what he's able to see from his house, and he's obviously seeing smoke from the Pentagon fire that you saw just a little bit earlier. And also, one other thing here in Pennsylvania, Governor Tom Ridge had a press conference just a little bit ago. He has said that the Urban Search and Rescue Team in Pennsylvania is on its way to New York City to assist, and he has pledged his help to Governor George Pataki of New York. And also today, all non-essential government employees in the state of Pennsylvania were told they could go home. Turning back to nationally, the government in Washington, Karen, who's one of the advisors to the president, came out a little bit earlier and said what the status is with the president. Here's some of her comments put together. Take a look.
Your federal government continues to function effectively. We have a federal emergency response plan, and at President Bush's direction, we are implementing it. We began to implement it immediately after the first attack in New York this morning. The United States Secret Service immediately secured the President, the Vice President, and the Speaker of the House, and they are all safe. They have also secured members of the National Security Team, senior staff. President Bush of our intelligence and law enforcement communities to identify and bring to swift justice those responsible for these despicable attacks.
We have heard some reports recently that President Washington. Another story here, you know, we've been trying to find out what caused this, who's taking responsibility for this. Of course, nothing confirmed at this point. Here's some information I know. An Arab journalist based in London says that followers of Osama bin Laden warned of a massive attack on the U.S. would occur soon. The journalist Abdel Bari Atwan says he got the warning from Islamic fundamentalists. The warning seriously. That's certainly not saying that this is definitely who caused it. We have been hearing differing reports. Of course, government officials still trying to work through that, and of course we will certainly bring you the latest on that. As that all becomes available. Okay.
Well, that's everything that we have for right now. We will be coming back at 8 o'clock this evening, but once again, there are many things that have been happening here in Pennsylvania. Doctors are being asked to help out with things, and we are trying to get as much information out to you viewers as we are possibly getting, and anything we're getting, we're transferring it over to you.
Certainly a lot of information coming into us as well, so that's why it sometimes may seem a little disjointed in what we're giving you.
But we will be back here at 8 o'clock, so stay tuned to TV5 News.
to